Alright guys, Fulu coming to you with another video. Shout out to the whole LDBC. If you like this video, please feel free to like the video. And if you want to, please feel free to subscribe to the channel. It's always by choice, never by force. So, for those of y'all who don't know, today marks the 2-year anniversary of Nipsey Hussle's first album, and unfortunately his last album of Victory Lap. And I just, as a hip-hop fan, I just want to share, the greatness of this album, and what he was setting out to do in making the album. If you listen to Nip's earlier works, like his mixtapes and things like that, they were kind of in the vein of an album, you can say. I would say that the first 3 mixtapes that he came out with, the Bullets Ain't Got No Name series, those ones were more just very much for the streets. Very hardcore, very raw, very no-filtered music that came out when he was coming out with those. Because at the time, you got to understand, he was teeter-tottering on, okay, if this doesn't work, I'm back in the mix, meaning I'm back on the turf, grinding, banging, doing what I do. So that's how the music came out when he dropped those series of mixtapes. But still, those are classic works. All of those mixtapes are classic. I mean, I remember a time when I was actually, when I heard Bullets Ain't Got No Name Volume 3, and I first heard Strapped, that pretty much was almost like my mood at the time because of what I was into, you know what I mean? So rest assured that I still bump those mixtapes, from Volume 1 to Volume 3. Now, when we fast forward, and the South Central State of Mind album didn't come about when he was on Epic, he was already seasoned in the game. He already had his feet wet in the music industry. And at the time, he had a lot of guys that he made contacts with that were some of the big wigs in the industry, right? So instead of retracting and going back to the streets, he did it the indie route. And he came out with 2 or 3 mixtapes. And those were the Marathon series mixtapes. And those, you can see the maturity, you can see the growth in his music because he was in the industry. He had both feet in. And those mixtapes were classic. And you can tell that because of his experience in the industry and what was happening in the industry, the changes that were going on in terms of the sound and in terms of what these record labels were looking for, he felt better to do it on his own. And that goes to, and I'll reiterate this over and over again, that Eritrean heritage has something to do with it, man. Because of the country he came from, who prides itself on self-sufficiency, do it yourself, or at least bring an expert in to teach me how to do it. You feel me? Now, with those were some good tapes. The Marathon, the first one was good. The second one was good. The song that really sticks out to me a lot, which I think he got from his reading of certain books, is Who Detached Us. That is a very good song, and that was on TMC. Now, he's seasoned in the game, and he decides to bring upon new ideas. And he did the Crenshaw mixtape. And when you look at the Crenshaw mixtape, you can tell that was a transition into kind of, I'm getting ready for the album. Because the songs that he put out on that Crenshaw mixtape, they were very much, could have been an album. You know, that didn't sound like mixtape material. It sounded like album material. And we all know he did the Proud to Pay $100 for a mixtape, but he still gave you the option to download it for free. And that was very special, and it was worth $100. Absolutely. The music he dropped in that thing, very much worth the money. Okay? Then we get Mailbox Money, which is $1,000, right? Same thing. My favorite mixtape, personally, out of all of his mixtapes, I would say that Slauson Boy 1 and Mailbox Money is my favorite one. Because with that Mailbox Money, you can tell that for the people who've been rocking with him a long time, you can tell that he was just basically saying in that tape that I'm here, you know, I'm here and I belong here. You know what I mean? I really like that tape a lot, you know. There's so many tracks on that tape that I can name that really did it. And then, you know, the next mixtape, he didn't really push as hard. He just pretty much said, okay, I'm going to just give the fans an appetizer to let them know that the album is definitely on its way and we're putting the finishing touches on it. And the appetizer was the Slauson Boys 2 mixtape, which is a good piece of work too. Very good music on that mixtape. A lot of songs that I like to put on repeat, especially that song called Shell Shock. You know, he's like, y'all not hard enough. Y'all niggas knuckles ain't scarred enough. Y'all ain't in foreign cars enough. Man, I came far as you know, it very good music. You know what I mean? And so then after the Slauson's Boy tape, I believe we get an EP, a couple of EPs. We get the No Pressure with him and Bino. And we also get the Famous Lies and Unpopular Truths as well. Just little appetizers that he just wanted to sprinkle on, saying, okay, guys, I got y'all. Album is on its way. I just want to give y'all something to, you know, satisfy the hunger while we're doing this album. And then what happened is we finally got Victory Lap. And the thing is about Victory Lap was for everybody. It was not just for the streets. It was for the whole masses, because the production, the instrumentation, the stories in that, it was just basically like a movie. When you really look at the album, because that was just music. You can tell that everything was organized. You can tell that he selected the tracks very, very much with concern to, okay, how's the, you know, although you guys receive it well, let me make sure everybody receives it well. That's what happened during the Victory Lap. And, you know, Victory Lap is one of those albums which I put with the classics, which I put with Scarface the Fix, which I put with Raekwon Built for Cuban Links, which I put with Jay-Z Blueprint, which I put with Raekwon Built for Cuban Links Volume 1, which I put with Nas Illmatic, which I put with AZ Do or Die. You know, this is the level of music he dropped. And I'm saying this, you know, because of the simple fact that You don't get too many albums like that in this present time. You know, Pusha T, Daytona is another one in this present time where I say, okay, he dropped some classic work with this. And it was short as hell. You know, J-Rock's Redemption, same thing. So this was a good era of classic albums. But I think Nip takes the cake for the simple fact that this album covers all faces, you know. It really does. I mean, it's just a real good work, man. I mean, I can go on and talk about this album, but a couple of tracks that stick out to me is Sucker Free, because he had the whole Caribbean vibe going on that Sucker Free. I really like that, you know. It shows that he has versatility. Loaded Bases is another one. Rap Niggas, of course. Blue Laces too. Double Up. I can go on and on, man. Okay? But it's very rare that you get an album where you can put it all the way through, because he's saying things in each song. He's giving you gems in each song. That's why it's one thing to hear an album and it's another thing to listen to an album. Some albums I hear because they're just things that you go around and drive around in a car with. But there's albums I listen to because of the gems they're giving you, because of the game they're giving you. You know what I mean? And so Nip falls into that category of albums I listen to, you know? And, you know, it's just sad that he's gone because he was progressing as an artist, you know what I mean? So, yeah, you know, him being gone, he left this one classic, you know, and that wasn't even the best of him. That's the crazy thing about it. He wasn't even at his pinnacle music-wise. The thing is that there were tracks that didn't make Victory Lap that you can tell that he was just moving as something different. You know, one track that comes to mind that I still listen to a lot. I mean, I have this track sometimes I have this track on repeat because it's kind of like it's kind of like a biography of Nip. It's the track called Perfect Timing, and it just goes over the whole thing, you know what I mean? And he drops jewels in it, and the beat is pretty good too. It kind of, in a way, the beat kind of does have that almost like Caribbean guitar loop in the beat, kind of. You can kind of tell there's hints of that. And you know, one thing I say about rappers, this is one thing that I really observe about rappers. Sometimes you need to curse to get your point across, but if your bars are just MFer this, MFer that, this, like shit this, shit that, and stuff like that, you're not really saying anything. And so when a rapper can cuss as little as possible but say a lot, that's the true definition of a skilled rapper. You know what I mean? And Nip fell in that category. I'm not saying he didn't curse, but he didn't curse that much in the album. You know what I mean? And so what I'm saying is that Victory Lap for me is kind of as it made me feel as I did when the first Blueprint came out. It made me feel when I listened to Reasonable Doubt. It made me feel the way I felt when I listened to The Fix, when I listened to Built for Cuban Links. And even Built for Cuban Links 2 is pretty classic, you know what I mean? That one took a long time. You know, the thing is about Nip is there's certain artists that when they come out with a first album, people are like, damn, that album's so good. What can you do to top that album? You feel me? Because, for example, Rick Ross, Port of Miami was a classic album. Okay? Port of Miami 2 is classic too. That is a well-made album. The thing is that some artists, when they make a sequel to their first album, the pressure's on them on how they're going to surpass what they did on the first album. You know what I mean? When they make a sequel to the first album, and the sequel to the first album could be, you know, 2 or 3 or even 4 albums down the line, you know? And so with Nipsey, if we would have still had Homie, I think he would have actually surpassed Victory Lap 2, because I have some music that was unreleased by him that I got from his neighbor, you know, his old neighbor, actually. And where he was headed in these songs, you can tell that he would have surpassed it, you know, the way he was rapping, the way he was putting together flows, the way it just showed what he was going through. It just showed what kind of life he elevated himself to, you know what I mean? And so I'm just convinced that he would have surpassed, you know. And with that being said, man, I just wanted to make this video to acknowledge that this is a 2-year anniversary on Victory Lap. Probably the best, not probably, the best album of 2018 in my opinion. And, you know, let's just celebrate, man. Let's just believe that on the other side, he's looking down, smiling, knowing that the fruits of his, that he planted seeds that produce fruit. You know what I mean? And sometimes you have to listen to an album more than once. You do have to listen to an album more than once to get certain messages that were not given, that you didn't hear the first time, you know. But anyhow, man, that's all I got for now, man. Foolish signing out. Leave your thoughts, leave your comments. Jara, man.